Smart Contracts Explained: How Smart Contracts Work. What are smart contracts? Smart contracts are similar to traditional contracts used in the real world. However, unlike traditional contracts, the smart contract is entirely digital. Thus, we can define a smart contract as a computer program stored inside a blockchain intended to enforce contracts' performance or negotiation digitally. They facilitate the execution of transactions without requiring third parties such as banks, brokers, or governments. A smart contract is similar to a multi-sig account in that funds are spent if a specific percentage or majority of users agree to a set of specific conditions. Smart contracts can be executed automatically once the agreement's requirements are met. That way, smart contracts may assist users in exchanging properties, assets, or anything else of value in a conflict-free and transparent manner while eliminating the need for a middleman. By the end of this video, we'll have covered everything about smart contracts and how they work. But before we begin, thank you for choosing to watch this video. To enjoy more of these videos, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to get the latest crypto news and updates. So, what do smart contracts do? Smart contracts are simply programs stored on a blockchain that are executed when the predetermined conditions are met. They're typically used to automate the execution of an agreement so that all participants can be immediately certain of the outcome without any intermediaries' involvement or time loss. Let's consider the example of Project X. Product teams use Project X to set their project funding goals and collect money from people who believe in them. Here, Project X serves as third party in between supporters and product teams, and both have to trust Project X to handle their money honestly and correctly. If the project achieves its funding goals, Project X is expected to give the team their cash. On the contrary, supporters expect a refund if the project does not achieve its goals. A similar system can be built with smart contracts without trusting a third party like Project X. A program can be developed that holds funds until a specific goal is reached. The supporters transfer funds to a program called Smart Contract. The contract automatically passes the funds to the project creator if it reaches its funding goals. If it fails to meet these goals, the money goes back to the supporters. Can we trust smart contracts? The use of blockchain allows smart contracts to inherit some interesting properties which are distributed and immutable. Because they are distributed, everyone on the network validates the output, and no single entity has total control over the money. That way, an individual cannot enforce the contract to release funds, since others on the web will be able to identify this event and tag it as invalid. Immutability means that smart contracts cannot be altered once the smart contract is implemented, so no one can go behind your back and tamper with the smart contract code. Besides Project X, smart contracts can be applied to several other things. Insurance companies can leverage them to process claims, banks can use them to offer automatic payments, and so on. How exactly do smart contracts work? Let's imagine that John wants to buy Jane's house. A traditional way of executing this transaction would involve signing legal agreements that lawyers draft and involve intermediaries like banks, house brokers, and real estate authorities. However, this agreement can be executed using a smart contract instead, which would look something like this. When John pays Jane 800 ETH, John will receive the ownership of Jane's house. Once this smart contract agreement has been implemented, it cannot be changed, meaning John can feel safe paying Jane 800 ETH for the house. Without the use of a smart contract, John and Jane would have to pay lots of fees to third parties such as banks, house brokers, and lawyers. Smart contracts aren't really contracts. While leaving the responsibility of securing contracts to the developers sounds good in theory, this has had some severe centralizing consequences in practice. Ethereum was founded on the premise that code is the law. A contract on Ethereum is the final authority, and no one may change it. The goal was to make smart contract developers aware that they are on their own. Knowing this, suppose there has been an error in recording the agreed terms of a contract. In that case, a party might seek rectification of those terms so that they reflect the party's actual common intention at the time of entering into the agreement. DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. A fund was created on Ethereum to show what the platform can do. Users could deposit money into a DAO and get returns based on the DAO's investments. The decision-making process itself would be crowdsourced and decentralized. When ETH was trading at $20, the DAO raised $150 million in ETH. All of this sounds nice in principle, but there was a catch. Because the code was not properly protected, someone was able to drain the DAO's funds. Many said the person draining the DAO of money is a hacker, but in a broader sense, this was not a hacker in the traditional sense, rather someone taking advantage of the quirks in the smart contract. This isn't very different in principle from a creative CPA figuring out a tax loophole to save their client's money. Following that, Ethereum ruled that the code was no longer the law and restored all funds to the DAO. In other words, the contract developers and investors had a poor decision, and the Ethereum developers decided to bail them out. The fallout from this incident is well documented. The Ethereum Classic token was born, preserving the DAO and conserving the code as law principle. In addition, developers have begun shying away from using the Turing completeness property of Ethereum, as it's proven to be difficult to secure. The ERC20 and ERC721 standards are the most frequently used smart contract templates in Ethereum, and it's important to point out that both types of contracts can be written without any Turing completeness. Smart contracts can only work with digital instruments. Even without Turing's completeness, smart contracts remain solid. After all, who prefers having to go to court to get something that rightfully belongs to them? For example, wouldn't real estate benefit from smart contracts? Jane can prove she owns the house, John can send money to Jane and get the house in exchange. There are no questions of ownership, trust, execution by the machine, and the need for judges, bureaucrats, or title insurance. There are two problems here. First, a centralized party's smart contract execution is not trustless. You still have to trust the centralized party to execute. Trustlessness is a critical feature, so centralized performance doesn't bode well. To make smart contracts trustless, you need a decentralized platform. Smart contracts are designed to be trustless, meaning users shouldn't have to trust third parties, e.g., developers and companies, before interacting with a contract. As a requisite for trustlessness, users and other developers must be able to verify a smart contract's source code. This leads us to the second issue. Smart contracts can only operate in a decentralized environment if there is a clear link between the digital and physical versions. Considering our example of selling the house, the physical home must also change ownership when the digital form changes ownership. The digital world has to know about the physical world. This is referred to as the Oracle problem. In a nutshell, the Oracle problem refers to the conflict between security, authenticity, and trust in third-party oracles for the trustless execution of smart contracts. So, summing it up, smart contracts are self-executing agreements with terms embedded directly into the lines of code, allowing a buyer and a seller to exchange through digital transactions. Transactions are made transparent, permanent, and traceable via smart contracts. Because these contracts are conducted over the blockchain, they're recorded on a public database and cannot be changed. Since the blockchain processes the transactions on a smart contract, they can be sent automatically and not rely on third parties. The transaction executes if certain predetermined conditions in the agreement are met. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to be the first to watch the following videos for more blockchain, crypto, Web3, NFT, and finance updates and news.